All right, ladies and gentlemen, so here we are writing names and formulas for ionic compounds that have polyatomic ions. All right, so first, what the heck is a polyatomic ion? Well, obviously, poly means many. Atomic means atom. And ions means something with a charge. So a polyatomic ion is many atoms with a charge. So there you are. There is NH4 plus, 5 atoms with a charge. There is CO3 2 minus. There's 4 atoms with a charge. All right. So basically, you treat them like any other thing that has a charge, except that they're multiple atoms. So for example, you could treat carbonate exactly the same way as you treat oxide. Or you could treat ammonium exactly the same way that you treat sodium. Doesn't matter. Same thing. It's a charged set of atoms, so it's an ion. Now, the key thing to remember is that they will almost always end in ATE or ITE. Because remember, if something ended in IDE, it was an element, what we call a monatomic ion, right? So, for example, where would my good example be? All right, so for example, phosphate is PO4 3 minus, but phosphide is just P 3 minus. All right, and so that's going to be important for us moving forward. Okay, so now that all that's done, you see the exceptions up here. There are some that don't end in ITE or ATE. The ones that don't end in ITE or ATE are ammonium, okay, which is also the only positively charged one, and hydroxide, which has a -1, and cyanide. And then you notice every other single one ends in ATE or ITE. All right, so there's basically only 2 situations here. One is where you don't need a parentheses, and the other is where you do. So let's do it. First things first. Whenever you want to write the formulas for polyatomic ions, you see sodium nitrate. All right, so sodium, well, that's simple. Sodium is simply Na. And we know because Na is in the first group, 1A, that it has a charge of +1, and so sodium plus. Next, we look at nitrate. Well, we look at the last 3 letters. The last 3 letters are not IDE, therefore it's nitrate. It's a polyatomic ion. So we go up into our chart and we start looking for it. Well, here is nitrate, NO3 minus. So NO3 minus. All right? Now, if you're using the crossover method, you're taking that number, which of course is a 1, and you're taking that number, which of course is a 1. And since we don't write the ones in chemistry, we call it NaNO3, and that is sodium nitrate. Now, sometimes you have more than one polyatomic ion, and so you do need a parentheses. So, calcium is just Ca. We go back to the periodic table. We find calcium. It's in group 2. That makes it a +2 charge. We look at the end of the name, I-T-E. That is not I-D-E. So we are going to look for hypochlorite up above. And we are going to find it here. ClO minus. So ClO minus. If we're using the crossover method, we're going to take that number. We're going to put it here. We're going to take that number, which is a 1. We're going to put it here. We do not write the ones, so it's just Ca. ClO. Now, because there's 2 ClOs, we have to enclose it in a parentheses and put a 2 on the outside. That is ultra critical. And the reason for that is your calcium is a 2+ charge, right? Then your ClO, your hypochlorite, this one has a -1 charge, and this one has a -1 charge, and so -1 plus 2 minus 1 is going to add to 0, right? That's what we need. Because we have 2 of these things, we have a 2 there, right? And we can't just put ClO2 because that is not 2 hypochlorites. All right, folks, that's enough to make you dangerous. So now you're going to turn to the rest. Oh, apologies. I almost forgot. Writing names for things. That was simply writing formulas. All right, so writing names. Writing names is pretty straightforward, okay? The first thing that you do is you have to recognize that you have more than 2 atoms, right? So you got more than 2 atoms, and that means that you have polyatomic ions. Now, then the question, of course, is which is your polyatomic ion? Well, your polyatomic ion is almost always going to be in the last part of the formula, because the only one that has a positive charge is ammonium. That is the only one. So your polyatomic ion is going to be that guy right there, right? And so basically you go back to your chart and you start looking for NO3 minus, and there it is. NO3 minus is called nitrate. So you simply write the name. The first thing was sodium. The second thing was nitrate. That's it. That's all there is to writing the formulas for them. Okay, now you have enough to make you dangerous, so you'll go ahead and do the 12 problems down here. 6 names, 6 formulas. Be sure to check them in the Canvas quiz.